Hello everyone, just minor setup settings and at 9 o'clock it starts. On point, I promise that.
Don't pretend you're no good, 'cause I can see your sunshine dripping out your sleeves onto my lifeline. Oh good, though you didn't mean to leave a trail for me, but you didn't know Trevor it is. It's alright with me. If it's alright with you, then I could be whatever it is that you need me to, my love, 'cause you're golden. 'Cause you're golden. I wish I like one would be if they hadn't been loved right. Sleeping all the time, I know why you stay inside. Safer to save your life. Whatever it is, it's alright with me. If it's alright with you, then I could be whatever it is that you need me to, my love, 'cause you're golden. 'Cause you're golden. Golden boy, 'cause you're golden. Golden boy, it's okay if you're lonely. Cause you're golden. See emerald skies, imagination over time. Say you need to go find yourself. What if you stayed this time? Won't you stay? Baby, won't you stay with me? We can find a way. You just make me feel complete. Won't you stay? Stay with me and let's see. I can see the way you move. Please don't be afraid. I can see the lies were true. We can find a way. Stay with me and let's see. Baby, won't you stay? Baby, won't you stay with me? We can find a way. You just make me feel complete. Won't you stay? Won't you stay with me? We can find a way. You just make me feel complete. Stay with me and let's see. Stay with me and let's see. Baby, won't you stay? Baby, won't you stay with me? We can find a way. You just make me feel complete. Won't you stay? I can see the way you move. Please don't be afraid. I can see the lies were true. We can find a way. I can paint your ocean blue. Wash the tears away, and we'll be breaking out real soon.
So, then slowly reduce the music. Getting that stuff done so you can hear me hopefully well. Set up everything like the sound and everything. Good, good, good. Some last stretching before everyone sees me and things are starting to get hot. First live stream since a long time, so getting a little bit nervous. Bear with me. So, and 1 minute. Hello! I think we can switch slowly into the live stream mode. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Flutter Explained. Here on the channel, everything about Dart and Flutter related. It's great to see you since a long time. My first live stream. I'm currently very active again on YouTube and I'm loving it. So very great to see you. Hey Manganesh, great to have you. Review account 07. I hope I will not disappoint you with widget things because today will be a live stream about Dart, not necessarily about Flutter. Why Dart? Well, we should know the foundations. We should know how Dart is working, and I would like to first set a ground basic knowledge. This is a prepared live stream. That means I made one testing run where I tried to explain everything and run everything out. There are still a lot of things that could go wrong, but I would like to show you one thing. So here, that's already the part, but we can see here, this is what I've planned with you. Yes, there are some numbers with timings, don't take them too seriously, but just that you have a rough idea what we want to achieve today. First of all, I will give you an introduction to the topic, what we want to talk about, that is Dart in general. I will welcome you to this great live stream. Then we want to see why we want to learn Dart. Oh, you can't see that. Sorry, I have to transition, of course. So many buttons. So, but again, I have created a checklist that we want to follow more or less in stride. So don't take the numbers with timings too seriously. Hi, Mahtab. Thank you. Yeah, so welcome to our live stream. You will get like a little bit of delay, but I found out that YouTube has this short delay, but with that, the quality of the stream is a bit better. So I really hope that helps you to see better the things that I'm sharing. Okay, but then we have applications in Dart, what we have created already. We will have a getting started, like how we install Dart, what is important to know about it, and things like that. Then we come to basic information. Here it's more about how do we start with coding, seeing a little bit the Dart syntax. So we go through a lot of different links here. We will discuss what Dart looks like and how you can implement it in your application. We comment in Dart, we write variables and data types, primitive data types mostly at the beginning. Then we will discuss constants versus final variables. We will write our first Dart project, which will be probably a Hello World project, and we will understand the main function. And from this starting project, we want to solve today a project where we write a quiz app inside of our terminal at the end. So if everything works well and we created everything fine in the next, let's say 2 or 3 hours, then at the end, there should be a final quiz application that we can test and run. So how will that look like? I can quickly show you. As I said, I'm prepared today, so let's see if I find that quickly. Nope, not here. So let's open the projects, Dart, and here I think it is this one. Let's open that. And here I created already a solution for us. So if I open the terminal, oh, there's already a lot. So let's go to projects, cd Dart, cd, what was it? Livestream project. And if I execute Dart, don't worry, we will talk about all of that later, but just that you see what we want to create today. So every one of you should have at the end of the live stream this nice little question. What is the capital of France? You enter, for example, Berlin, which is incorrect. You get the answer. And after that, you come to the next point where we ask which programming language is used for Flutter, which will be Dart. That's correct. And at the end, you get the final score. You will be able to update that as you wish with more answer possibilities, with more questions and things like that. So it is extensible. So if you would like to work on that further, it is possible. What's next to say? In the video description down below, you find all relevant links and resources that I use around this live stream. That means here you can see you will use Visual Studio Code today. We will have a whiteboard. In case I will draw something, I will do it there and will save it. I have never used it before, but let's see, maybe we can use it. Then we have the Stack Overflow surveys. I will discuss that in a second during the introduction. And I added here all 3 years that I found, like 2020, 21, and 22. The reason for that is I would like to show you the increase of numbers of Dart developers and why it is important for us. Then we have the state of developer ecosystem of 22. We can also check if I find a 21 version. Reason here is it contains a part where mobile frameworks are discussed, especially cross-mobile frameworks, and you can see how React Native got overtaken by Flutter, which I think is very valuable to understand. Then we have Dart and Dart Code Labs and Flutter itself as a website. The Code Labs are important or interesting because here you can learn more about Dart in general. And at the end, just the Discord link. Okay, so much to the intro. I put that checklist for me here down so that I will not miss so much from it, hopefully. And if I do, please feel free to point it out. But I will try to really cover all of these points step by step. Okay, I think that's it for the welcome of that part. And let's go into why you should learn Dart. Well, first of all, Dart is a very versatile language that you can use in nearly all different applications, which makes it very cool to use. And that allows you to put that in different applications. You can use it on Mac OS, you can use it on iOS, on Android, it can be used on Linux and all of these different parts. And that makes it pretty strong as a language to use very quickly in all the different parts. Yeah, let me check exactly versatility. Then we have Flutter integration, of course. Flutter is one of the newest it's cross-platform application frameworks. Like it creates apps in Windows, macOS, Android, iOS, Linux. Hopefully, whenever Fuchsia is ever released, then it will also work there. And of course in the web. So it is a framework that is at the moment pretty much hyped and it works really well. You can create very good apps with it. Some examples are, for example, the Media app, the MediaMarkt app, which is one of the biggest retailers in Europe. You can see the BMW app is written with Flutter. You can see eBay. So there is a lot of different banks. For example, Nubank is inside of it. So there is a lot of big foundations and companies that are using Flutter already in their day-to-day work. And it's getting more and more. That's pretty cool. Additionally, it has a very easy learning curve. So if you are coming from any other programming languages, Dart gives you a very nice, let's say, kickstart to jump into Dart. So if I, for example, go to the language tour, if you are coming from JavaScript or C# or any other programming language, you will understand very easily how Dart is working. And that gives you a good head start and does not break you or make you slower here. So it is beginners friendly because it's very, let's say, readable, and that makes it beneficial. And it has strong typing and null safety. What does that mean? Well, if you enter something that is not allowed, for example, something is the state of null, then it will throw you an error during the time where you compile it. That means if I, for example, go into this file and I say something string t equals null, then it will be red because it's not allowed. This string says here needs to be a value inside at all times. That doesn't sound too much, but if you are coming from other languages like JavaScript, for example, which can be undefined, null, and so on, you have to make a lot of checks. You have to be always very restrictive, and the language, if it doesn't support it out of the box, will make you or will allow you to create a lot of errors. The inventor of the value null also called his own invention as one of the biggest mistakes in programming. So that means you should avoid it, and Dart gives you the tools to directly see these issues and resolve them. Yeah, then we have performance. Thanks to Dart, it has two options to build its things. That's number one is so-called JIT, just-in-time compilation. Let's see if I find quickly something about it here. Let's go to Dart. Let's search for JIT. Dart compile, Dart overview. Let's take it here. I think here we have it with JIT. Yeah. So you can make a build time just in time. That means we are able to take new Dart code and inject it in the old code. That allows, for example, the hot restart and hot reload inside of Flutter, because with just in time, you only update these parts of the application that you need. While you have the ahead of time compilation, it allows you to create production ready code, and it produces one outcome of your creation of code. That means whenever you have code, like Dart, for example, is a really programming language, that means it needs to get converted into something that your computer understands. So this conversion goes through a compiler usually. So your code that you have created goes into the compiler, and at the end there is an output out of it. So this output can be understood from computers. That's different to JavaScript, right? JavaScript is usually running only on your computer and will not getting compiled. There are options to do that, but that's just one thing to keep in mind. So that means with this JIT and ahead of time compilation, you can get a little bit of a performance boost, because especially with ahead of time, if you compile everything at the beginning, well, you don't have to care about it when you are having the final product. But if you are using JIT, you can check all the time new code inside. It's a little bit slower, but gives the benefit that you can update everything on the runtime. Okay, don't want to go too much there, but it allows you to have rapid development cycles with hot reload at the end in Flutter. Then we have concurrency. Dart uses isolates. What is an isolate? Let me quickly Google it. Isolate, to give you a better overview. It allows the asynchronous functions to run in a whole different Dart VM. VM is a virtual machine, so your code, Dart, is running more or less in a separate container, and inside of there all the operations are running. And whenever you want now to, let's say you have something very heavy that you want to calculate, you think, I don't need that necessarily now inside of this big application. So I pull that out into an own VM. I create a whole new VM out of it. And now inside of this code, I just wait for that, for example, or let that run. And whenever it has an answer, it should inject it back into the code. This is called an isolate. So you create two whole separate things there inside of the Dart VM, which is pretty great because that allows the communication between the two and allows you to have a very big performance boost. And the utilization of multi-core processes, for example, doesn't come into shared memories or locks or anything like that. And you as a developer, like a user of this language, don't have to care about it. You are just happy that everything works at the end. So that makes it very cool to use at the end. And again, very beginner friendly. And it reduces also the possibilities of errors that we can do. Good. Then we have ecosystem. if you know, there is this website called pub.dev, and I did not add that actually to our list of different resources, so I will quickly do that. And let me quickly check relevant links. I think that is very relevant. So pub.dev. That's the Dart and Flutter package manager. And here you can find all different packages that Flutter and Dart can inject for them. So for example, if I search for something command line, then I will probably get a lot of different possibilities. And if I search for color, for example, then you can here see colorful CMD, for example. You can see how many likes it has, how many pub points. This is an internal calculation of how relevant this package is, and the popularity, so how many people have read that. Also, you can see, for example, prompts, which rich, simple, synchronous command line prompt library. So you can ask and write things inside of here and have the benefit to, for example, here in this little GIF, you can see that it will create this nice little prompts for us. So enter your name, you can enter something and enter the line breaks. So you could use this package now, and here's explained how you can install it. You can see what has changed in the last couple of changes and an example, so you can recreate that for you. And you can see the scores, where they come from. So you can see follow Dart file conventions, provide documentation, platform support, and many more things. So pub.dev is the ecosystem that is ever growing, and there are a lot of packages that not only focus on Dart or Flutter, but have like intermediate changes. And with this big ecosystem, which is ever growing because we have more and more users in Flutter and Dart, you can see there is a big thing that makes sense to learn it. Then we have the Google baking. If you know, Dart and Flutter is baked by Google, so they support it, which can be a good thing, can be also a downside, but the biggest part is it's a good thing because it's supported. That means the open source development, the strong development on it is always directly in connection with Google. And it helps if there is money in a project, it helps that it stays relevant in the space, it helps to get views, it helps to be active. So a big baker is always relevant. So for example, in React Native, it is Facebook. And yeah, everyone has to decide which one he wants to focus, right? So for example, TypeScript is Microsoft and so on and so forth. Okay, so why did I say it could be a bad thing? Because Google has abandoned a lot of big projects in the beginning or already in the last couple of years. But I'm 100% sure that Dart and Flutter is not part of it because they invested already a lot in it and they invest every year more in it and they support the community a lot in that direction. So Dart and Flutter is really good and it allows you to make sure that you are learning something relevant for the industry. Good, then I said already Dart has the ability to be cross-platform. And that's something that is very cool because if you have some code, you can share that with these compile commands for all the different parts. So you can put that in JavaScript, you could bake that as a backend code. You can do a lot of things with that and allow it to put it, for example, as a WebAssembly. You can put it as native code for Linux or Windows and things like that. So that allows you to have very cross-platform alternative here. And that's why also it is so cool for Flutter to use because it has this very big, powerful possibility to be cross-platform. I hope my chat is not frozen. Nope, doesn't look like that. Perfect. Just want to have a look. Not that I am talking all the time. Good. And the last part is career opportunities. More and more companies see now the relevancy of Dart and Flutter. And so I am pretty sure that Dart and Flutter in the long run will be more and more relevant for employees and hiring. And we will go to the Stack Overflow in a second. And there I will talk about that a little bit more in detail. Good. First section done. Do you have any questions so far? So checklist. Let's say, let's keep that open because we want to go to the other parts. So let's see, I don't get any updates. Let me quickly check if do I have? It's down here, haha, no. here we go. No, no questions. Okay, gotcha. Good, then let's jump quickly into the Stack Overflow parts, because that is a very interesting part for why you should start with Flutter. If we search for Dart in 2020, we can see it was, from all respondents, one of the languages that has been around 4% relevancy. So that means 4% of all respondents said that Dart could be relevant for their work, which is in 2020 not so much, not the best result, I would say, especially if you compare it to JavaScript, which is like 76%, which is quite high. But what we can see if we switch now to 2021 and search for Dart, let me quickly check, this is relevant, no, this one. In 2021, it has been already 6%. That is, of course, because of the amount of people who learned now Flutter. They understood now what is the benefit of Dart and have seen how easy it is to implement and to work with. So more and more people did like Dart as a language, and this is an increase of 2%, which is massive in programming, you know, especially for 1 year. In the year 22, we can see it already increased again about 0.5%. Unfortunately, there is no, I don't know if there's Stack Overflow survey 23. Just checking if no, that's the last one that I could find. Good. So that's being said, we see that its start is still increasing, while, for example, JavaScript is decreasing and all the other languages slowly also decrease. So that means Dart has a future and people think that this will be something that they want to learn. Another cool thing is if we look for Dart, I think it was here. That is the salary. We will come to that later because that's also part of the opportunities. This is just a nice little graph. So, okay. Was it not here? I thought there was one. Yeah, most loved programming languages was searched in 2020. And as you can see, Dart was one of the most loved languages, besides of Rust, of course. Rust is amazing. And we have TypeScript, Python, Kotlin, Go, and Dart is not so far away from it. So you can see it has a very interesting part of it. So Dread, of course, you can see it's harsh. But as you can see also, Dart is not necessarily wanted in this case. So this brings us to the next part for career opportunities. At the moment, you can see from the payment level, this is this one. So this is the paying technologies. You can see that Perl earns you a lot of money. And as you can see, Dart is quite low compared to all the other languages. And this is one thing I learned too now in this last couple of months. So much Dart is a great language to work with. You don't get paid that well at the moment. That's just the truth. I don't want to sugarcoat it. The sad thing is, I think companies and also, let's say, recruiters don't know Dart and they just hear that people love it. And with this combination, and because more and more people want to learn and work with Dart, you can see that they push the prices low quite well. And because I think it's not so complicated to work in Dart and to switch to Dart, a lot of developers are here, and with that the pricing are decreasing. But there are also good news. If we're checking now 2021, no, oh, Dart, not here, not here, here. So you can see the media income for, this is top paying technologies again. Also in 2021 was it pretty low. Now let's see the newest version. And here you can see there has been a massive increase, like 10,000 euro about 1 year. And the reason for that is because not only there are more languages like Erlang, which earn you way more, but you can see that slowly Dart is getting traction about also the employees, and more people want to develop things with it. So you can see there is also an increase in payments, and also more and more senior developers are increasing in Flutter and Dart. Inflation is of course also a part of it. I'm not an economics expert, but you can see all the languages are getting higher, but you can see the difference between PHP and Dart has decreased a little bit. So you can see here is 6,000, there is it only 2,000. Oh, then it's not even that good. Maybe it's even not that good what I'm telling here. But yeah, Dart is unfortunately one of the less paying jobs, yet I'm pretty sure the more people getting into Dart, the more senior people getting into Dart, the more this median will also increase. And you should not forget that this is also still just a survey, so it's just statistics, which always have some differentiations here, so it can be still different. Okay, but as I said, I don't sugarcoat anything. I just say I love Dart and I will use it further. But if you want to search for a high-paying job, according to Stack Overflow, I would highly recommend you go to Clojure or Erlang F#. So I think these are the tools that are earning you, at the moment at least, a lot of money. Good, then we have the state of developer ecosystem from JetBrains. And here, if we search for Flutter, was it Dart? Here in Dart, we can see, for example, the age level. So who is developing Dart mostly? And as you can see, a lot of young people in the age between 21 and 29 and 30 and 39 is developing in Dart. And this is also one part. If you see, for example, do we have Clojure here inside? That would be amazing now. Or F# or something, F#, for example. There you can see it is way more broad, also with, I want to say, older people compared to here. You know, we have not that very high amount of people inside of here, so we have a way more seniority level, and that is also increasing the payment in the median at the end. But I just found that very interesting, that especially young people are very interested in Dart and Flutter. So that is usually a good sign, because also young people are getting more and more senior, and then we have a very strong programming language here. That tells me also that it's future ready, you know? Young people joining into Flutter and Dart, they're getting senior and senior, and with that we have a more versatile ecosystem in the long run, and that's it, what we are looking for. Okay. So much to that. I hope that gave you a short intro. Let's see where we are here. Chuck, checklist, why learn Dart? Yeah, gotcha. So applications with Dart, whenever you search something with Flutter, you can search, you will find a lot of different applications here. Things that have been created already, apps that have been using Flutter a lot. If you know, for example, where is that? I think CodePen. Flutter Twitter, you can see, hopefully I find that quickly. Yeah, Mariano Sorilla, sorry if I pronounce it badly, has created this amazing CodePen where he has copied, I think this is the Twitter copy. Hopefully it's not broken yet. Why don't I see it? Let me quickly check if I find it. Hold up. Okay, that's not that nice now. Flutter pen, not now. Okay, I'm not that good prepared. I really hoped I can just search for it and it will work. Now I'm what do we have else? CodePen, Twitter, Flutter. Maybe I find something quickly. Okay. Flutter.dev games, I think, was one, and flutter.dev clock. So if you have never heard about these tools, Flutter has created different challenges over the years, and one of them was the Flutter Clock Challenge. If you have never seen that, this is a Flutter application that they created, the particle clock, and the best thing is, if you are checking it out, it's completely open source, so you can see how this particle clock has been created. You can see all the different parts, and it's getting very interesting here, because how it is created is nuts. It's with the particle with a particles engine with a painter, And all of that is painted more or less hand drawn with a custom painter on top of Flutter canvas. So you can see how versatile at the end this clock is. And if you check out, Flutter has created also this visual beauty, code quality. I think I should also add these links into our relevancy. And so let me quickly check. Flutter examples. Check. Clock. Then we have the games part, and also here you can also check out some games that has been created with Flutter so far that you can find here. Like for example the Google I/O Pinball, which is a great example of what Flutter can already achieve in the web. And you can really create and play here. Wow, that's loud. Can I mute that tab? Thank you. So you can choose your avatar, you can see all the things that happens in the background. You see there is like all the different things. You can activate this pinball. I don't know. Yeah. So you can play the game actually. And this is all done with the Flame game engine in the background. And I think very good company made a lot of development work here. And yeah, it's just crazy how good and good this game is at the moment. Camry 3D Games has not the best option. I think if you want to go into the 3D development at the moment, you would probably take Unity or anything like that, because if you check, there are containers for Flutter. So you can just copy, you have a Flutter widget and put in your Unity game inside of it. And I think, I don't even know if there's also an Unreal possibility. No, probably not. If you want to play, there are now more and more, because of the newest engine of Flutter called, what is the Flutter new engine? What's the name? New rendering engine, what's the name? What is the name? I forgot the name. Anyway, but Flutter gets a new rendering engine, and 3D gets a lot of more possibilities there. And I think if you join the Flutter community, it is the community around Flutter, you will see there that there is a work group that currently tries to figure out what they can do with 3D. And you will find, for example, more and more shaders working with Flutter. So Flutter shader example, I think Wolf and Rain did create there something. I think this guy, yeah, you have to go to, I hoped that there will be an image or anything like that. Is there? Okay, anyway, I don't want to go too deep into these things, but you can check that out. It's pretty crazy. You crashed it with multi-balls. Yeah, I think there are still some bugs. Impeller is the name. Thank you, Marjan. Great. Yeah, so you can create there a lot of things, and Impeller will allow you more and more 3D objects. As I said, Wolfenrain used it to create more and more shaders. If you don't know what a shader is, it's a small application that runs on your graphic card, and that's why the execution is way faster. So yeah, just to have an overview there, these are tools that have been created with Dart and Flutter, and it's pretty great. Another thing is ServerPod, for example, a tool that I really love at the moment. It's like a full stack application for Flutter and Dart. That means you have the backend completely written in Dart, you have the front end completely written in Flutter, and it gives you everything at scale. That means it uses so many cool features and stuff, and like for example, oh, why I'm so bad with naming today? Terraform. For example, Terraform and Docker and things like that to set up your complete full stack application. And that makes it very interesting. And I want to deep dive into it. And I started already a little bit, but this is also a tool that gets you started if you want to run something on Docker, if you want to create a microservice strategy first thing, then ServerPod could be something interesting for you, because it gives you all the clean feedback, it has a lot of scalability, and I'm really curious how this journey will go in the long run. Good. I hope that gave you an overview about things that you can do with Dart and Flutter. I'm currently using Dart personally mostly for CLI tools like small chat command things like I showed you at the beginning with the quiz, so that you have an easy possibility to run something and I could compile that, and at the end I could share that with something. So I could say compile the solution for main.dart, and I think I have to say that it should be an exe. Dart compile exe. So it compiles and it generates me an exe file. Unfortunately, I'm at the moment on a Mac, but if I would be on a Windows PC, I would now be able to execute this exe file and could start the program that I created there. And that's pretty awesome. This is Flutter, live stream solution. Yeah, so here inside we have now this exe file. And that's pretty cool because with that you can really implement something that you can share with your friends and family and share it on their computer. Cool. All right, so I told you about the relevant links. I think I can paste it already once more inside of the chat just to make sure. So here we go. So if you want to check out the relevant links, you'll find everything down there. So next step is we want to code something, right? We want to work on all these things. So what we would like to install is Visual Studio Code. I think I have created a link. Here we go. So you can download Visual Studio Code. It's an so-called, an editor actually, quite basic, like for example Notepad or something. It just allows you to have the files better organized. And you can see here on the left side, you have all the files, you have different application. We don't use everything today, but just that you are knowing, you can enter here code on the right side. So for example, void main, so something like that. And it will organize the code for you. It will highlight the different words, like void is now bluish, main is yellowish, and then you have this brackets things. It has the availability of extensions where you can install different things to it that makes it more interesting. Everything like Dart, Flutter. And today we need the Dart extension. So if you go to this extension section and you search for Dart, then you usually have this install button up here and you should click that so that we have Dart, the possibility here. Another thing that we will use is Dart itself. So what that means is if you join here to Dart, going down here, you will have to install Flutter or Dart, one of the two. If you check out Get Dart SDK, it will tell you how you only get Dart. Like for example, macOS, you can just brew it. But if you want to say you want to anyway develop and play with Flutter, I would highly recommend to follow the installation guide of Flutter, because Flutter at the end, if you have installed it, inside of, I think tools, yep, you have Flutter, and inside of here, if I change to the list, I hope that's visible for everyone, you can find the bin folder, and here you can see there is the Dart executable with part of it. So you see inside of here you have the Dart SDK installed. That means when you install Flutter, Dart is coming delivered with it. If you install Dart per se, it's also possible, but is not the recommended path in my opinion. So I think I have created already quite some videos for installing of Dart and Flutter. And if you have questions there, please let me know. I will not go through these steps now, but you can just go here getting started. You need some, because I am now on a Silicon Mac, that means I have an M2. That means I have to follow different paths. Then you have two options. You can download it just like per se, like a normal application and put it somewhere. It's not my preferred path, even though that Flutter is recommending that at the moment. I would really go with the straight GitHub installation. The reason is you can now, if you do that, switch between the different levels. Like Flutter, I think it's called, is it branch? No, what was it? To switch the versions. Flutter switch master. Let me quickly check. Channel was it? Okay. So if you search for channel, and execute that, you can see you are on different channels and you can switch them. So whenever I ask for a Flutter channel master, it will try to install that. Yes, we can also use dartpad, of course. That's a good point. Dartpad.dev, I think it's the name. Here we can also execute our Dart parts. I just want to give you the tooling that I usually work with so that you have a head start, but we can also start with the dev inside of the web if you like. Don't know if you can make that bigger, but yeah, that's of course also an option. What is dartpad? It is inside of the browser, so inside of the web, and here inside you can execute code and write code as you please, and then you can share it too. Because you can see this is currently running locally. So if I, for example, execute here or write some Dart code, so, and let's say we print something, hello world, which will be the basic tool that we write. It also shows you errors that you have, you can fix them. And if you press on the run button, you have here on the right side the console. And what's also cool, down here, you can see the documentation right away. The only downside that you have in dartpad is you cannot jump into methods. You cannot read what is inside there. And I will share that with you also later that you can see that. Okay, so much to the tooling that we need. So installing Dart, if you need to, we can use dartpad to have at least a foundation today. And what is else? Visual Studio Code if you need some more advanced development or you want to develop locally. Besides of that, we need a terminal like this one. For Windows, it's PowerShell or a CMD is the name, I think. And yeah, I think that is the most important part that we need today. So back to ClickUp, what did I start? So Dart syntax overview. If you want to get started with Dart, what I would say is if you check out here, we have the so-called language tour. So if you go to language, you get the syntax basics like variables, operands, commands, comments, metadata, everything that I will explain to you, you will see inside of this website. You can find everything, but in my opinion, it was quite hard to identify everything here. So it's not giving you an easy run through, but you have these tutorials here where some parts are explained. You can find how they are working. I recommend also to check out the code labs that I added inside of the resources tab, because it gives you this cheat sheet, for example, with things that you can consider. It gives you an introduction if you are a Java developer. Yeah, also iterables, null safety and things like that. Good. So now that we have that, let's switch to our dartpad. I already created from time to time here. Let's hide that. So I already created now multiple times this main function. But let's understand quickly what is this main function actually. And what is a function? And why is it different colored? You know, all of these are good questions. First of all, void, for example, is a so-called keyword. That means if we check out the documentation of Dart, go to docs and search for the examples. Let me quickly search it and search for void. Then we find that, and let me check if I find the keywords. Okay, so where was it? Actually, I searched something. It's not this. It is the language tour. Where is that? Language cheat sheet, effective. Overview. Okay, anyway, then I explain it by my wording. But a keyword are words that are reserved for Dart, that are not allowed to be used in a different main. Void in this case means nothing. Nothing is less than null. So you could have something like this, but which is also a keyword, but this here is different to this one. Void means really nothing. So this method, main, will not return anything. It will just run, and after that it is silent. Nothing happens. If you could, for example, return also null, which would be a value. So it's really a bit weird because null is also nothing, but it's not nothing. Okay, so void is really, we don't want to return anything from this method. What does that mean is whenever we execute main, we don't want to have here a so-called return word. It's also a keyword. You are not allowed to use that in your programming language, and we don't want to return anything. So that's why it's getting red probably now, because we say we return nothing and it cannot return now a string. Okay, what do we have else? We have the name of the variable of the function, in this case main, and then we have these two brackets. These are for parameters. So I will now add a parameter because the void method is allowed to have parameters. It has the allowance to have a list of strings inside. So, and I should make that a bit slower, smaller. And now we come to a point where I would like to quickly use VS Code just to share that knowledge, because that means now this here is again keywords. List is a keyword, string is a keyword, and args is just a parameter name. I can call that whatever I want in this case. So things, args, test, whatever I like. But what we can see here, we return a list of string. So you don't have to understand that completely. But what you can say is there is coming something into this method. So inside of this function now, I can use that. So for example, print test. So whatever it comes here inside can be printed here. So how would that look like for in this case? Because the main function is our entry point for every Dart program. So that means if you are writing Flutter, there will be a main function. If you are writing Dart, there's always a main function. Dart itself, so when you execute this command here, is a program, right? And it searches inside of your file that you provide the main file to execute. So if we say now main.dart and execute that, we get an empty list. An empty list looks like this. That's the reason with print, which is a keyword, and this is a function in this case, which doesn't return anything, but it takes a list of objects or an object inside of it, and then it just announces that to our terminal. So it writes it down here. So with that, we have a possibility, an easy way to show what is inside of a variable. I can also add here text, like for example, hello world. And instead of tests, let's call that names. And I will start this tool again, and we see hello world. But what would happen if I add now, for example, instead of world, we would like to see what is inside of names. And I pass in here max. So this is the parameter that I provide. This means Dart, main Dart is executed, and I want that max is written into this variable here. If I execute that now, we can see hello, and it executes, or it shows us the list with max inside. What would happen if I add also Machtab into the list? Aha, hello, max with comma separated Machtab. That is also pretty much because we are going into the deeps here because this is a list and things like that. But for you important is we have a method or a function in this case called main. Inside a function, it is always consisting out of two things. The parameters, this is this part, and the function body. This is the part down here, this one that is now red, so this part. So if I execute with print hello world, so yep, we can see this part is our function body, this part are our parameters here, and this is the name of the function, and this is the return parameter. Okay. That's already quite a lot. If you have understood this, you have already really a good starting point for any programming, because this gives you the possibility to write your first own programs without any issues. You know, you have already the possibility to print something out, and you have the possibility to write something, and that's already pretty cool. Good. Now, programming. What we want to do is, from time to time, give other developers the opportunity to understand our code better. Usually we try to write our code as good as possible so that everyone understands without reading anything. So you don't want to join the documentation to understand the code that is written there. You don't want to use an AI tool to convert everything so that someone can read what you have done. But if this is not possible, and from time to time that is the case, then you need some wording. You need to explain what this code does. So with that, you have the possibility to write documentation. Like for example, this method prints hello world into the console. Let's make it this way. So that means we have written something into our code that will not be executed. That means if I run now, this part here will completely be ignored from Dart. And as you can see on the console, hello world is only executed. Another thing that you can do is making these 2 points here and like this and comment like that. Use the end form line for document, try writing. What's that for an info? I don't know that. All right. Sorry, that is JS doc. I got a hiccup for a different programming language. Okay, but with 3 stars, you tell Dart that this is documentation. You want to document the main function in this case. So the main function does something. And if you have ever checked on pub.dev, for example, let's wait quickly. So this is also completely ignored and nobody cares. But if you have ever checked, for example, pub.dev, and if you go into Share Plus or something, and it has created a documentation with Dart, so API reference, then you can see that here is text inside. And usually if you click on these parts, you can see all the classes with their text inside, with the constructor explained, what they have done and things like that. Not very good here, but if you are searching for a library that is more Flutter related, like, I don't know, what is a good Flutter package? Let's try the Firebase out. I think they are probably quite good with that. Action code info. Yeah, so they have a class. They announce what exactly this class do. And you can see, for example, this part and the implementation and things like that. This is always done if you are using these 3 backslashes. That means you are allowed and you are encouraged, more or less, that that if you are using this, you can explain the Dart code way more in detail. You can give that, for example, deprecation methods like deprecated, and could give that information why it is deprecated. That means if you are using this, you would say this main function is not allowed to be used and you should use something else. So it's deprecated, not used in the future. So this is the Dart docs. Also a very interesting topic, but I will not jump too deep into it. But you can generate automatically documentation from the Dart, which is pretty cool and pretty helpful, especially if you want to share code with other people. Yeah, so much to the comments. With that, you are allowed to improve code for everyone, make it more readable and understandable. I hope that is clear. Now we go into a different topic, variables. My girlfriend had a long time to understand what that is, but let's try to make it as easy as possible. Sometimes you want to put information into a box. You can imagine, let's say I could open this part and I could put something inside. And whenever I'm interested, I take the same box, open it, and get outside of a banana. For example, I put the banana inside, and whenever I need it, I put it back outside. So how would that look like? We have a variable. We can use var for that. We can use final for that. We can use const for that. These are all keywords from Dart that we are not allowed to use, but for Dart it's important to understand. So we can use var, for example. Let's say name. And this variable name is now empty. There is nothing inside. But we want to have, for example, max included. So now we are coming to this fun part. We say there is a variable and it tells us already that it is a string. String is a chain of characters. And in this case, we have 1, 2, 3 characters that is inside of a chain, and that's a string. So this is just the name of it. But what we can use now, whenever we like, we could say now print name. So for example, hello, let's do it this way. Hello world, hello name. I should write that correctly. So what you do is I create a new chain of strings or characters and put inside the variable name inside. So hello name. But what I could do is also print it again and say, you are my friend. And then add again the name variable. And if I run that now, we can see this variable is being used twice. So I put max into the box. So this is max, this is the box. I put the max inside of the box, pulled it inside of hello max, pull it one time out, put it back in, and whenever I need it again, I pull it back out. So that is a variable, and I can use that in all kind of things. So for example, I could also create a var last name and change that to my last name. So, and now we can also do that with that and adding it here, but we don't want it down here. And we run the whole thing and we can see in the top one, I use both variables. In the bottom one, I only use the first one. Another good thing is if I want to change that now in any circumstance, I would like to call that now Machtub. And the last name is now, for example, Wasabi. So, and I run that. Now you will see that the text here will be changed completely. So Machtub is now used in different places. And this is cool because I can change that over time. So if I say, for example, I like in the first place, I would like that the name is Machtub, but now here I take the same name and call it Mike. Now I have changed it, and if I run it again, we can see we changed the value inside of it in between. That means we have a variable Machtub, we put something inside, we use it when we need it, then we changed it. So that means we have the box I put inside the banana. Now I first time use it, then I go inside and switch it to something else, like for example that bottle. And whenever I need it, I pull it out again and can use it more frequently. So I hope that was clear. That is a variable. We will use that at all places. Like really crazy. We need variables all the time. So now I told you already there are different data types. The first and basic one that most people understand quickly is the string. Why? It is a collection of characters, as I said, and with that you can write things inside of your terminal. But there are also other types. So we can change this var, for example, to a string. Now it is strongly typed. It was before too, but now we make it more obvious to other developers. So now there is, for example, the integer. That's, for example, an age is an integer. And with that, you can maybe guess it already. An integer is a full number. So let's say Machtub is 18. She isn't. Then we have that here. And now I can use this age. As you can see, it's bluish underlined. And as you can see, we get this error because it's never used. So it will tell us, hey, you should understand here something that is not used. So let's create a new print where we say, hello, name and last name. You do not look like age. And let's see what happens if I execute that. So we get, as how we thought, we get this line with hello, Machtub Wasabi, you do not look like 18. Interesting. Why did that now work? I told you that this is a very big string, yeah, a character line, but this is an integer. So why does that work? You could think, well, the print method will do that, but that's not completely true. The main variables like integer, string, double, I think it's double. Yeah, like double has a function implemented called toString. And this toString method will be automatically executed whenever it knows or whenever Dart feels like, hey, you want to have that as a string actually. And with that, you get a lot of help there from Dart. Autoboxing. What means autoboxing? Converting a parameter into an object corresponding rapidly. Exactly. Sorry, the Java compiler applies. Okay, yeah, autoboxing. I did not know that this has a specific term, so thank you very much, the bad Fred. That helped me. Autoboxing, very good. But yeah, it will execute that, and whenever it feels like it needs to be a specific type, it will change that type to us, for us. So that means also for us, we can also implement this toString method, and actually every object in Dart, and now it's getting really, again, interesting, because everything in Dart is an object. So that means a string is an object, an integer is an object, and because everything of it is an object, the parent is the object, and it always contains this toString method, and we need to override it on the different paths. Okay, good for us. We have that. Then next primitive type is, for example, a double. That's the height, for example. And also here we have an interesting number, because this is how high I am. I'm 190 or 1.09 centimeters. So probably we should call that in centimeters. So again, very interesting. Now we have a dot inside. That means we mean here float commas. That means whenever we have a number that is your height is 1.0 height in cm. Execute. So now we get this as a float number. And as you can see, the 0 behind has been removed because I did not specify that it should bring that with this. So there you can see there are also some parts that you have to understand correctly to make it correctly look like. So if I add here a 5 and run it again, then we will see it looks much better. Yeah, is in centimeters. Good. Is that even correct? No, I think it's in meters. Jeez, Max, what is wrong with you? In meters, obviously. You knew that, I know. So, much better. Okay, but anyway, what does that say us is there are different primitive types, and if you check out the Dart documentation on dart.dev, let me do that quickly. Docs, let's see if we find the syntax, variables, comments, libraries, keywords. Here are all the keywords. So all the keywords that we are not allowed to use as Dart developers can be found here. We are not allowed to be using inside of a variable abstract, for example. What does that mean? If we are going back to our code, that's not the best one. Here. In our Dartpad, we are not allowed to have, for example, a variable called string. So that will be complaining to us because this string will override things, and it's not allowed to have a keyword inside of your variable names. So that's not a no-no, a big not good. So assert is, for example, another one. So something like that. It's not allowed to use these wordings inside of your own variable names. Or at least you should avoid it at all costs. Good. So I will probably also add that to our list of relevant links because I like that. So put that to Dart, keywords. Good. Okay. With that, I start drinking something, and then we will talk about built-in types. Yeah. Good. Here we can see all the types that are built in Dart and Flutter, which called the easy types more or less. And the primitive types are numbers, that is integer, double, that are strings, the character lines that I told you, and it's booleans. And booleans is another one that is very interesting and should be known, and I should have already thought about that. It's bool, and the boolean says if something is true or false. So very important in programming. So is male, very difficult topic. But anyway, I say false, false in this case. And now we can print that too and say, is she male or is, let's do it differently. Print name is male, and then is male behind. Finish and run. And this Boolean type tells us now if something is true or false. And that is very important because we need that for Boolish algebra, and we need that all the time. So we can, for example, create also here a so-called if statement. And with that, we are coming to the first part of, let me see if the checklist is correct. So we have data types, we have constants and very final. We will talk about that in a sec. Yeah, we can do that actually now. So at the moment we are using always this var name or the type of the variable, but there are also two things that are quite important. That is one time final. That is important because if something is final, we are not allowed to change it again. So if I change here to max now, like we did before, then it will tell you that this is a final variable. It can only be set once. That means it's not allowed to be changing during the runtime. So it's not allowed to be changed here. And a more stricter version of that is the good old const. Because constants are getting created during runtime, and now it's even harder to change them. So that means if you have a function, you can set them. So run. And also here we get the error. Const is not allowed to be changing again because you have set it once. All right, so that is a huge difference. And a const is changing to runtime. No, while you can change final to runtime. So here final name is something. A const is not able to change anymore because it's created during build time and will keep its value all the time. There is null safety like in Kotlin, and I would even say it is a stronger null safety in Flutter because it's sound null safe. And especially with the newest version, this has also a huge impact on performance. That means whenever you have something that is null, like for example here I say this one needs to be set, the name. It is not allowed to be empty. If I set now explicit null inside, we get this is not allowed. And yeah, we would have to either say it could be null, that would be one option. And why is it not working? A value type of type can't be assigned to type is not... because it's compiled in null safety, it's not even allowed? That's weird, I would say. Or I'm just not allowed to set it like that. Okay, this is the case. Okay. So if we execute that now, we can see everywhere these null values. And yeah, so because of the question mark, it's allowed. If I remove the question mark, we get all the errors here. So it hasn't to be set to something. So I can also do it here, but I could also say down here, name equals max. And if I run it, it should fail actually. No, it works. Perfect. And the cool thing about Dart is now even down here have understood that I have set the value here. So that means we don't have to somehow make these checks like if name unequal to null, then do whatever is down here. Something like that. It's not necessary because the null safety, and you see this error message here, it says, hey, this is not null. It's not possible that it's ever null. So remove this if clause here. Doesn't make sense. So that will help you during development lifecycle all the time because it's super strong and makes so much sense to use. I really love that. Good. Const and final. So setting up development environment, I started with that already. Creating a new Dart project, we did. Hello World example, I think we did that quite well. Sorry, I just go quickly through my checklist that I don't forget anything. So the main function, I think I explained that too. So now let's go into conditionals. Yeah, so now we have all of that. But I said already that is male is a difficult one, right? So we want to say when this is true, then we want to print something, else we want to print something else. So as I said it already, there is this conditional statements with the if-else clause. So if is a keyword again, and now we have to add these parentheses afterwards, and we can say is male equals to true. Then we want to print he is a male. So. And if this is true, now only if is male is true, this gets executed. So if we run that, and we can see here, he is a male. But if I say here false and run the whole thing, we will not get this line down here. It's just empty. So inside of here, we created a condition with if and said when this condition is true, then we want to execute some part of the code. That also happens with the opposite. We could say something like else and run that. So print, he is not a male, or he is a female. I hope that is allowed to say today. Yeah. So if I do that, now we get, hopefully, run. He's a female. Great stuff. And that is already a condition. So if is male is true, here you can see two equal signs will tell you that something is equal to each other. As you can see, this is also a function implemented, so you can read the documentation about it. It's super interesting to read also the documentation about things like that, because you can override these things, and people do that because if you want to compare two objects, then you will need to do something like that. Okay, but there is also a third one. There is the possibility for an if-else. If-else, if something and else. Now I can check again. So I could say, for example, is male unequal to true and something else. So for example, the height in meters is larger than 190. No, it's wrongly written. I'm stupid. Sorry. It's else if. And now we have that. And now inside of here we say he is a female and quite large. Don't know, something like that. What a stupid idea. I should have created a different approach, I think. But what we can see here is now it doesn't jump in the first one. It says, no, he is a male. That's not true. He is male. He is not male, but, and this is addition, the height in meters is larger than 190. So that's why we get this part. And it doesn't jump into the last else part down here. He is a female. So you can create with this the different conditions and write these different things down. And depending on what is correct, it will answer here. Nowadays, a lot of people don't write only if statements. There is a way shorter way to write these things. And now I just have to look up the name. Shorthand conditions, conditional, Dart, name. How to short if in Flutter. Yeah, I know how it looks like, but what is the name of that? I forgot. Anyway, but there is a shorthand possibility. So when you read different code from other people, especially if it's only two sentences, so let's say we would remove that if-else part or else-if part, and we would have only this, then you would usually read something like the following. Is male, or print is male, question mark, and then you would rent he is a male, else he is a, or she is a female. Okay, but anyway, it does exactly the same thing. Try removing that code. Okay. Now Dart identifies already that this here will never change, so this here will never be executed. If I make this true, it will be exactly the opposite, and this will be bluish underlined. But we want exactly that behavior. And what we can see is, well, one time it will execute this part here and this part here, and one time it will create this part here. So if I say false, it will directly jump into the other part. And with that, you have the shorthand for true-false applications, right? But there is more that you can do. So let's say we would have that the age is undefined, okay? We have never set age, and we would say this is a question mark, so it could be null. So what could we do here? We could print something like, where we say, okay, if the age is null, then we return something else. We say, for example, please provide your age. And if we execute that, this two question marks says, if this is null, then please enter something. And if it's not null, if I say, for example, this is 18 and run it again, now it will execute with the number inside of it. Pretty cool. So we have a lot of shorthand possibilities. And if you check again the Dart documentation over here, you will quickly find, if we go to introduction and we search for control flow statements, probably, if here, and if I search for question mark, not found, very bad. So where do I find that? Operators. Yeah, I think here we'll find it. So you find, for example, if null, that's two question marks. You find the AND operator that we used beforehand with this AND, but another option is, of course, to have this OR statement with these two pipes here. So if we go here, currently we had this if else statement, but we could have also this OR statement. I have a Mac. I don't know how to make pipes. Why do I don't know how to make pipes? Oh, that's gonna be tricky. Is it this? Is it this? No. Okay, unfortunate. Then let's copy it quickly. Professional programmer that don't know where the pipes is on his keyboard. Sorry for that. It's a new keyboard and new Mac, and I have to still work with it. But here you can say now, if it is true on the left side, then also another thing could be true. Let's say this is male is false, but something else is true. Let's say the age is equal to 18. Then we want to enter the first thing, and we run that. Now it will be he is male because the 18 is true, and this 18 is true, and this one is false. I told you already that there will be some Boolean algebra. Boolean algebra, no? Not bullish. Bullish. Maybe you find the English one, but blah blah blah. The easier part that you need is this, more or less. So the AND operator, the OR operator, and the NOT operator. And I think this article should be in English in the best case, so that I can also share that. Boolean algebra. Here we go. History, disjunct, all of these, secondary table, monotone, blah blah blah. Here you can see the graphics. So if X and Y, then you only have the parts in the middle. If you have X or Y, you have both. And if you have not X, you have everything besides of X. And I think hopefully we have this nice little graphic somewhere too, also in the English article. No? Unfortunate. If X is, yeah, perfect. Here you got that. So if X is 0 and Y is 0, then X and Y is 0. If you have X or Y, then you have it's 0, because it's both false. So if X is false, Y is false, then both are false. If X is true and Y is false, then X and Y is false, because one of them is false. If X or Y, then it's true, because both are true. Same for 0 and 1. That means X is now false and Y is now true. Then X and Y is 0 and X or Y is true. If both is true, then both are true. That's correct. There is no in general, objects in Dart are really hard to compare. There is even a package for that, is equal or equality or something, equitable, that makes that possible, like you have in Kotlin. So that means if you want to compare a deep equality between two objects or the reference, it's quite hard in Dart. So if you have two objects and you want to check if they are equal, you will need some kind of package. And these packages are the ones that I told you overrides these equal signs. For example, inside of the operand to check if two objects are 100% equal. So yeah, that makes it quite difficult. Thank you, Saga. Great to have you. I need to drink something. So, just quickly want to check a little bit around. Yep, all good. Stream is still excellent connection. Everything works well. The health is good. No connection. I'm really happy. As I said, the laptop is new. The whole setup is new. So I'm a bit nervous if everything worked well. But until now, big thumbs up. Everything works. No delay, no lags, no problems. Okay. But Bullish algebra, I also add that to our resource list because I think that is quite relevant for most people. Bullish Boolean algebra. I'm sorry if I'm going a little bit too deep into the different topics, especially now with the Bullish algebra, but they are like essential to understand how the programs are working at the end, because these if statements are running everywhere. You will have them everywhere included. And that's crazy. So if you don't know it, you will have a hard time to work with it. Okay, so if else I think is clear. Then we have a different possibility. Let's say we have something that could have multiple values. Like say we have an enum, and inside of that enum we would have what do we have for an enum? So for example, yeah, Germany, England, America, and Italy. An enum is just like an object. We will not talk too much into it today, but expected an identifier for an enum. Yeah, right. So countries. But it is a bit more complex data type. And what I would like to do is make it lower. Okay. Germany, England, and America, Italy. So let's say we have these countries, and now we would like to create a so-called switch statement. That means depending on which of these countries we land, we want to do that. Is there a shorthand for A equals EXP, question mark, value 1, value 2? Yes, that is what I wrote seconds beforehand. I think I can quickly do it again. So, for example, you could have print, and inside of this print you could have is male. This is your expression. You say if this is true, then you enter true, and else you say it's false. And then you can enter depending on what you want. So you could reduce this if-else statement to a very easy one-liner compared to it. So I don't know what the shorthand that has a specific name, I think, and I forgot it. But yeah, it's possible, absolutely, and should be used in most cases. So I will quickly eat my banana just to have some energy. And if you have some questions, bring them in. That's perfect timing. Good. Okay, but now back to our countries. So let's say we have a list of different things and we would like to only go into separate parts of it. So if we have a so-called switch for that, now I can part in the countries. And if we switch these countries, does it work like that? I think I will need to specify one. So I have countries here. And we say I take countries dot, let's take Germany for now. So if I have that, what I can do now is I can use that to say we switch over these countries. And now, depending on what is inside of here, we have different cases. So why is it complaining so much? Missing cause? Yeah, exactly. So the warning here already tells me that there are missing cases for all the things. Thank you, Powerpuff. Ternary operator is the name. Ternary operator, obvious. How could I forget that? So, and thanks to these warnings, it tells me already that there are missing case clauses. That means I have a case, for example, for Germany. Countries.Germany. And inside of here we break. And if this is Germany, we would like say, we are in Germany. So did I do everything correct, or is it complaining? Yeah. Countries.Germany. Let's see, that works out. Can I organize here? Yeah, format. Perfect. Look how beautiful it is. So now we need a next case. And this is not Germany. Let's say we are in Italy. Then we want to say, hey, we are in Italy. Format again. Great. So if I run that now, what happens is we have this countries element where we have Germany saved inside. And it will complain now about all the missing other parts. But what we can do is here, for example, also a default. The default is there where we jump when all the others are not correct. So we are not in Germany, we are not in Italy, we are in India. So we are somewhere else. So if we do that, this will be the default case. So if I enter here, for example, something completely different, like America, we have not covered yet. So it doesn't exist. So if I run here, we will run into this default case. We are somewhere else. We don't know where, but we are somewhere else. That is very good if you, for example, call an API and you don't know exactly what is the end result out of it. Then you could have a mapping where you say, hey, I tried everything to map it correctly, but I don't know what this is. So it's my default case. And here I just spit out, that's wrong. Yeah, I don't know what to add here. And with that, you have your cases. You have a list of this enum is an enumeration. So you have different values inside of here. You have this variable now set. And if this is something else, you fall back into the default case. The break part here that I have entered is important because if I don't add this break, and let's say we are back in Germany, break return. Interesting. I did not know that, but it seems that Dart is not even allowing it. In JavaScript, for example, you would have now the problem that it would just run through. So if you don't have a break method, it will only enter we are Germany. It would also explain we are in Italy. But thanks to the good old Flutter, or Dart in this case, we get, hey, you are not allowed to do that. Either break, return, or throw. So return would return a value to the method beforehand that has called. Throw is if you have an error, you say throw error, and with that you can execute that. And it will finish the command, nothing will happen anymore, and it will show the error inside of your terminal. But we don't want to do that, so let's break it here. Good. Ismail is not used anymore, so remove that, and we don't have here errors. So much to the switch statements. I think there is not so much more to tell you. These are important to switch the countries. If you have multiple values, then you can use that. It's an alternative to the if statement. You could do the same thing for if. There are strong opinions that people say you should never use switch statements. You should never use if statements a lot and things like that. Don't trust these statements too much. Switches are inside of programming because they have their value. If you think your option is the perfect case for a switch scenario, think about to use it. Never get into too much opinions here. It is a performance fight, I think, about the milliseconds. I think there is actually a benefit or a disadvantage to use the one or the other, but this is so microscopic that you usually don't care. It's only if you make a very performance optimized application. And here comes some sayings from performance experts. Never fix a performance issue before it appears. So if you don't have a performance issue, don't try to solve it, because the time you invest into solving it will be way heavier than it's even necessary if it's anyway performant already. Good. then we come to the next big topic, loops. I love loops. Loops are great. So let's say I remove here a little bit just to get a bit of clear state. And inside of our main function, we don't need that too. Inside of our main function, we would like to count now to 10. Inside of our terminal, we would like to see 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. How can we do that? A computer is quite, I don't want to say it, but let's say he is a quite stupid one. He only understands the basics, and I want to keep some of these things, something like that. So now let's count to 10. How is that possible? First of all, we have to create a loop for it. That means we want to iterate over something and do it multiple times. We could now write, for example, print 1, and then we take the same and say print 2. And I could do that all day long, right? So I have here 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I could change all of these 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And yes, that would count for us. Oh, let's see. Wow, great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. But you know, I'm a programmer. I hate to write things rapidly multiple times. I hate to see something like that because it's not necessary. There are better tools to do that. So for that, we have a so-called for loop. And it means here we can specify a number. So example, var I equals 0. This is our index for now. So we want to use that to remember our number where we are at the moment. So at the moment we are at 0. And I think because it's var, we could also say it's final actually. And now we want to say, is the index smaller, like this is our condition, 10, then, so the for loop consists of 3 different parts, and I will finish it quickly, and after that we will talk about it. So first of all, this is the declaration of the index. We want to say what is our index. Then we want to give our condition. Whenever we finish our loop, we check this condition if it's still valid. So if this is true, we go again into this loop. And the last part is we want to do something with our value. In our case, we would like to increase our variable. Okay, it's not allowed to be final. Sorry for that. Good. That means now we increase after each turn of this loop, we increase the index by 1. So that means whenever I print now out the index here inside, it will run 10 times inside of this for loop and print out all the different values too. So execute it, and as you can see, it executes and we have, we counted wrong. Oh no, how could that happen? So as you can see, we started with 0 and go to 9. So that is not what we wanted. We have 2 options to solve that. We could say we start with the index 1. I would not recommend that because in programming, usually the index starts always with 0. That is always important if you have a list later. And then we can say that the condition, we say that the index should be lower or equal to 10. But if we execute that now, we will see something, now we have 11 inside. So probably we have to increase that. But what we also could do is say we increase the index by the condition by 1. And let's see what happens here. Oh, didn't work. Now I got it. Yep. So we have that. And what we also could do is say we increase the index by printing it out. So, gotcha. So 1, 2, 3, 4 till 10. Great stuff. So we also just increase that number. That's it. And with that, we have our first for loop. We count to 10 without a problem. Then we have another loop that is called the while loop. So you remember that we had this boolean up here. So bool works well, or works is running equals to true. So while this is true, we do something inside of this loop. So print, let's say is running, and here we want to have like a counter. Oh, there's a question. Let's fix that first. So let's keep it like that. Let's add here the part. And now, why do I don't use ++ index? That's also a possibility. This changes that the index will be iterated or added before we jump into the loop. That means when I remove probably here this one, we can run that whole thing. Let's see. Oh, this is a bad idea. That is a bad idea. No. Reload. Can I rescue it? Oh no, I did a mistake. I was too fast and now it's broken. Did I destroy it? Yeah, exit page. Can I? Please don't do that at home. What we did is an infinite loop. As you can see up here, we had this while loop and it was running all the time. So let's make that false quickly so that it is never running. And what we can see, 0, 1, 2, 3 till 9, and this didn't work either. Yeah, the reason is because we are jumping into that part below here after we have run into the loop. So that means the first time we go inside, we go always with 0 inside. And if we are coming here, it doesn't matter if we do it beforehand or afterwards. So what here happens is whenever this method is executed, do it before or afterwards. That means if we would use, for example, like this and update it here, and would nothing do here, I think that would be possible. Let's try that. Yeah. So what we did is now, we did not increase our counter inside of the for loop. What we did is we increased it inside of our print method. That means what we say is, before you print it, add 1 to it, and then execute the next iteration of the loop. So this is also a possibility. I would personally not like that just because it changed the modifier inside of the loop and not outside of it, but also there are use cases for it, so feel free to do it when it is necessary. So, should working again, great. I hope that answered your question. All right, so now next thing. We have this while loop here. And inside of this while loop, we would like to have also an index. So let's say we have an integer called counter, and it starts with 0. Now inside of this while loop, we would like to print the counter. So the counter is counter. Perfect. Love it. Good. So the counter is counter. This is what we say. And here we will use now exactly what the bad thread said. We want to, whenever now we need this one, counter. And whenever we come into it, we want to increase the counter by 1. Now we do that, and the problem is this is running. We saw that seconds ago when I get panic and want to change it quickly. This while loop was infinitely running because is running was never false. It did never change to something. So whenever we are now in this loop, we have to find an exit. Somehow a possibility to leave this loop again. And the one possibility is to check for something. So we say is running, and then we say counter equals to 10. So whenever the counter reaches 10, then counter, wait, is that correct? No, unequal to 10. So when the counter hits 10, then it should be is running false. And with that, we should go to the next parts of the script. So that means we have now a counter here inside of this while loop. We count first with this for loop, and I will reduce that quickly to 2, that we don't get all the numbers here inside. So let's run that. And what we can see is now, thanks to the while loop, it is running as long as this condition is not true. Interesting. So is running is getting false here. So counter is unequal to 10 when it is got 10. And then this one is getting false. If this is getting false, inside of the while loop, it stops running. And that's why this while loop is now not infinity anymore. Interesting enough, if you ever work on a game development part and you would like to create a game or something, this while loop is usually true. That means inside of here, there's just a true inside. Reason for that is you want to update all frames and want to change something on the screen and things like that. So the beginning of a game is usually while true. Fun fact. Okay, I reduced also that we don't post too much inside of our frame here. Very good. And after this while now, we can do something interesting. So let's say we want to do something and say, hello world. And we want to do it as long as something is false, true. So inside of here, we have a so-called do while loop. And now it will execute this the first time, and we do it as long as something is true. So if I put here is running, yep, and run that, we will see that we count 1, 2, then we have hello world, and because is running is already false, we will not run into it anymore. So we could check if the counter and say, for example, inside of that do loop, we take that first time, we say is running is true again. And if counter equals unequal to 20, is running equals counter unequal to 5, for example, then it will stop the whole thing. So if we run that now, we will run into an infinite loop because the true, I did it again. Sorry for that. So I broke again Dartpad. So hopefully we get the message again. Yep, thank you. Exit the page, starting the page again. So that was a stupid idea. Let's take that out. Obviously, because I cannot change that the whole time. So counter is increase, and I have to obviously increase it. So now with that, we increase the counter, and if the counter is false, we get this while loop false, and we stop doing it. Great stuff. And I think I could even keep that inside of that, because we just set it all the time true and then false again. Not optimal, but yeah, I don't think we even need that actually. Because we set that, and I think that should work. Yeah, perfect. So what we can see is we run that 4 times. The reason for that is we are already on a counter that is 2, I guess, 1, 2. And what we could do is hello world and print out the counter just to see where we are. So yes, as you can see, the counter is on 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we would now switch that and put that in front, you can see we will have 1 less probably. Yeah, perfect. So the reason is now we first increase the counter and then we put it inside of the isRunning function. All right, that was quite complicated, but these are all the loops that you need for programming. Everything else is considered out of these loops at the end and should work like that. So no issue here. So now we could say, great, we are done, right? But not so fast. Let's say we have a for loop with 10. What we can do is whenever we can create an if statement and say index equals to 5, then we want to do something crazy and we want to break again. Break we had already in the switch case, but also a for loop can be breaking. That means we print now the index 1, 2, and we stop at 5, and because of the break, something will happen. So let's see what will happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as you can see, 6 is the last number. Because with break, we jump outside of the for loop and say, because this condition was true, we stop working on it. We don't want to do that. Another cool thing is what we can do is if the index equals to, let's say 3, then we want to continue. And if we run now, what we will see is there is a number missing. There is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Continue says us, take this value, and because that is at the moment not what I want to achieve, jump one beforehand. So increase the index already and don't go further inside of this loop. So with that you have, for example, if you only want to push out every second information, like if you don't want the first, the second, and so on. So with that we use the modulo operator. And modulo tells us the rest that stays. So if there's a 1 inside of the index, then it would stay 1 over. If it's 2, 4, 6, and so on, it will be 0. And whenever this happens, we want to continue. And if we do that, we lose a lot of numbers. And if I remove the break in this case, we can see that only the not the equal, what is it called if it's not gerade und ungerade translations. So if it's not anyway, you know what I mean, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 will be printed out, but the other ones are not visible. So if I would change that to a 1, you could give that even, thank you, or uneven. My English today, horrible. Okay, anyway, but you can see it's very easy to see all the numbers now. And thanks to the continue method or continue keyword inside of a for loop, that will happen. Continue and break are also working for the other two. So don't worry, you can use them wherever you want. All right, questions to this and loops and conditionals and control flows in general? No? All right. So what we could do is now starting to work on our quiz, or better, have a look on how the quiz is created in general. So if we go to Visual Studio now, let's have a look into the solution that I created already. We have here something called a list of strings. We will have a look into that. We need that too. We have a score. We see we have a loop here, and we have some interesting print methods where we access things. So let's say we have a list. A list is a data type and it contains things. Like for example, let's put that back into our dartpad again. We have a list of names. We had that at the very beginning, if you remember. We had that when we were working with the arguments that we can pass in the main method. So for example, Max, we have Machtub, we have, for example, the bad thread, up, and maybe Powerpuff. So if we have these names, now this is great because it is a list of different names that we want to show. So what we can do is we could use a for loop and say final name in names. So is that written? Yeah, perfect. So now it's getting crazy. I did use the for loop like we learned it before, but there is a possibility to, let's say, interject. Yes, it's like an array in JavaScript, for example, but compared to JavaScript, it is strongly typed. So we know there is a string inside, and there is not allowed to be a null or undefined in between. So if I have here a null, it will automatically throw me an error. There is no null allowed inside of here. So pretty cool with that. And what's cool now with this shorthand for loop, I can print out all the names with this line of code. So with that, it's done. Very generics. Yes, you have a lot of generics, and that's sometimes an issue, but it helps you a lot. Generics is this part with these nice little tags in front and behind, where you pass in the type of it. You could also have that as a so-called dynamic, which is, yeah, everything. Or you can say it's a var, and what's cool about that is it will then automatically identify which type it is. So if I mark that, as you can see in the documentation, we can now see that this is a list of strings. Good. That means also that you can create your own data types in the future where we work with these. Good. So now we have this for loop with all these namings and things like that. We could also use, you probably know that, if we have names, which is a list, there are methods on that. And for example, one of my favorite one is the for each that you can use. And now here inside we pass in, or don't do that. I think that's too complicated. But anyway, a list just contains information that you want to process. In our case, this is a list of strings. And there is a list of numbers that you can create, like for example, list of integers, where you say ages And now you would have for each of the participants up there a different age, like he's 8 or 35, then you have a 28, and this is wrong because we want integers. 28, the bar thread is today, I don't know, let's be kind, 25, Powerpuff, I don't know how old is the Pufferpuff, so let's say 12 years, something like that. So now you could say, okay, that's not possible with this kind of loop, so we have to switch that a little bit. So let's say we have var in I just take the number here, and I is smaller than names.length. So the length of this list, yeah, is inside of here. And then we increase I. So, and with that we can also read all the names by saying we print names. Now we have to pass in this with I. If I enter here 0, this is just a number. What's that? No, we don't need that. So if I pass in this number, we execute that and we get the first element in this array. As I said, the first element will always start with 0. So if I execute that, we should see now every time my name inside of it. But what we can see is we iterate over the whole part thanks to the length of the names. If we check the documentation, can we see that here? No? List maybe? So, blah, 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 growable lists, how you can create them, we can map them, we can overeach, yeah. Not perfect. Anyway, but what we can also do is, we can not only show with I all the names that we would like to, we could also say that this person, the following person, we have to use this one now, has the age of, or is ages I years old. So if we execute that, the following person, Max, is 35 years old, Mahtab is 28 years old, 25, and Powerpuff is 12. So thanks to this I operator, because we go through both lists, we can enter that. So now it's nice, we have exactly the same length, you know, the first is exactly that amount of length, but the second is also. What would happen if we remove one of these values and run the whole thing again? Ooh, we have a range error. Index is out of range. Index should be less than 3. The problem is we try to access from the ages one element that is not there yet. So what happens is Dart will say, nah, that's not possible. Please fix that. Yeah, there is an issue. Congrats. I thought already that we can make you happy with that. Cool. So much to that. That means in our case, we want to keep that as an equal length so that our method here with the for loop is working correctly. You could solve that problem by creating classes, but all that is getting too much into complex, and I would like to keep that for a future live stream so that we can see and understand how the code is running inside of here. So if we check the method, the solution again, what I did is I have created a list of questions, and then what is the capital of France, what is the programming languages used, and I gave answer choices. And as you can see, answer choices is giving even crazier, because here, what we have done for the answer choices, let me do that. So we have the questions. Let's say this would be our questions. And here we have our answer choices. Now I would like to ask you always 3 questions for the answer. And what I did now is I created a 2-dimensional array. That means I have one list that contains lists with a string. And that means we have not only that first array here, we have inside of here also different arrays, like the first, the second, the third, and so on and so forth. And all inside of here, we have the answer, like answer 1, answer 2, let's do 4, 2, and answer for 3. So that means in this list here, we have more options, right? So answer for 1 and the last answer for 1. And with that, I was allowed, or I had the option to create a list inside of a list so that we have multiple answer possibilities. So that means for this question, we want to show these 3 answer possibilities. For this question, we want to show these 3 answer possibilities. I make that a bit bigger so that you can read. And then we have as a third part the list of correct answers. And as you can see, it's again a list of string with Paris and Dart inside of it. Good. Lastly, we keep our score. So let's see if I can copy that or bring that over into our method here. And let's create that from new. So we have a list of string, our questions, which is a list where we have, for example, do you have a good question? Let's say, I have to think quickly. What is a good question? Yeah, let's keep it with the capital. What is the capital of France? Question mark. And the second one, what is the programming language of Flutter? So, and with this, we now need possible solutions, right? So we have this list of string, which is our possible answers. So, and here inside, we provide, for example, for the first question, we need to have Paris, of course, because that's the correct answer. Then we have, for example, what is in Germany, it's Berlin. In England, it's London. We could even add more, like for example, what do we have else? Paris, Berlin, London, Washington. Why not? Washington. Yeah, great. So now we have our possible answers. And we need our last part, which is our strings with our correct answers. And I think I forgot something, but we will do that in a second. And the correct answers is, of course, Paris and Dart. Good, and here we miss something. We need, of course, a second list with all these things. That is Dart as the correct one. We could also say JavaScript. Let's take Kotlin. Let's take C#, and let's take Dart. And why is it complaining? Because a comma is missing? Yeah, great stuff. Good. Now we have these 3 lists and we have the correct answers, and that should already solve most of our problems. Now, last thing, what we need is an integer score. And here we want to save our value inside. So that means whenever we answer a question correctly, then we would like to show that score. All right, next step. I will go through my solution because time is getting a little bit short, and I would give you also the option to discuss a little bit. Or we have still an hour. Oh no, that's good. Then let me go quickly to the bathroom, and then we will solve that puzzle together, how we can work here further. So be right back. Good. So reducing the sound a little bit. So good. Okay. So now, first step that we would like to do to make our tool running correctly. And I don't know if Dartpad offers us the option. So what we have to do first is we have to get an answer inside. So someone has to enter something. So for that, we would like to take Dart.io import. What is an import? If we would like to have a package and using it, or a different code that someone else has written for us, then we would need this we need this import name. So we import a package from someone else usually, or we can create our own packages that we then use again. The Dart.io package is interesting because it allows us the stdin function, hopefully. Does that work? Unsupported imports, oh no. I thought about that. So let's see, yeah, it's Dart.io, right? Nah. So I think we will need that. Without that, it's gonna be quite tricky. Yeah, it's not possible. And the reason is, of course, because we are working in the web, and so IO is not acceptable because IO would be the file system. So I'm sorry, we will have to switch to VS Code for that one. So I take that, switch over here, and we have our main function, install SDK at the top. You mean? No, yeah, that's just the information that you have to download and do it on your computer. So that means we will have to put that down here inside of VS Code. And now with the terminal, we have to execute it. So that means we have to execute Dart main, and then nothing happens because here we can now import the Dart.io package. At the moment, it's not used, but we will do that. So as I said, the stdin allows us to access the terminal, and now we can prompt, what was it? Sync, something with read line sync. And this allows us to read something from the terminal that someone has entered. So we want to save a string, probably, called prompt or answer from user. So if I execute now Dart, or better, let's print that too, that we see also what we got prompted here. So. And now we can execute that here. And it waits now, nothing happens. So if I enter here now, hello world, it will execute and show us the text once more. So that's of course a little bit hard to understand. So answer from user is this, and what we should also do is before we go inside, we have also the possibility to write something out. I think it's write, and here we can write something like, for example, please provide your answer. So, and if we go inside of here, it will write that. And as you can see, thanks to the std out write, we stay in the same line. So you can see we are now exactly behind the first paragraph. So if I restart here quickly, so then you see we are directly here afterwards. This please answer your question. So that's why we don't use print, because print would create always a line break for us. So if I answer now with, I don't know, 1, then the answer from user is 1. I hope that makes it clear. So what we did is we write something here in this readline sync, we put it in the answer from user, and then can't we use input in Dart? What do you mean with input? Is that we could use an input, but all of these are Flutter widgets. And because we have no direct access to Flutter, it's gonna be difficult. Is that what you meant? Because input would be something like HTML parts or something like that. So this will be not possible inside of the terminal. I hope that makes it clear. Sorry for that. Okay, so we have the possibility to write. We have this read line synchronously, and then we have the print of the answer. But we don't need that yet. What we want to do is first asking the user the question. Then we want to show the user answer options. The third, we have to check if the answer is correct. Fourth, add or update the score of the user. If no questions are more open, then show the score. Inform the user if the answer is correct. So, input used in Python to get details. Let me quickly check what that is. The thing is, we are at the moment not at Python, but it could be that Python has something like that, and it's just the same thing, more or less. It's just different name. Yep, it's exactly the same thing. So the same what you have with in Python, you have this input, and here you have this read line sync that we had seconds ago. Why don't I have it? We are not here. Here. So this here is more or less inside of this input function. It's nearly the same thing. So in Dart, it's just written a little bit more cryptic, I would say. So yeah, but it's the same thing like the input part. No worries, with pleasure. So this here is our to-do list. This is what we want to solve. A good tip for you as programmer is always to think about the steps that you want to do to solve your problem. So first, asking user the question, showing the user answer options, then check the answer is correct, inform the user, update the score, and then show the score at the end if there is no question left. All right. Besides of that, check if the answer is correct, inform the answer is correct, and then of course show the next question, right? We want to loop that. So that seems like asking this here seems to be part of a loop. And then we want to show the next question. If no next question exists, then update the score is also part of this. Exist, then yeah, we have that. Show and finish the game. Update score, and yeah, the numbers are a bit lost now, but exit the game. So let's see, we're 5, then this is 6, 7, 8, 9. No, don't do that. So that means this seems to be in a loop, right? So one question, then we go to the next question. The next question, doing all that, then this is finished, and so on and so forth. Then we have, if there is no question left, so we have asked all the questions, then we update the score. That's not true. I think the update the score happens at the end. This is just show the last or final score, stuff like that. Nah. All right. So, and then at the end, we want to exit the game. All right, so this one here is for necessary. We need that later. So what I will do is I comment that out for now. I just wanted to check if this is working for us even. And I think we can even remove it because that should be no problem to implement. All right, then let's get into it. Asking the user the question. So how do we do that? We have the questions here. And we want to answer now the first question. We learned now how to answer the questions. And to make it very easy, let's start with for final question in questions. And then we print our question. Simple enough. I know it's maybe a bit too basic. That's true, but today we did not work too much with objects, so I would like to keep it as simple as possible. And we can do that with the objects in the next step where we explain these. So in the next, I think, next live stream where I will talk about Dart basics, we would like to go into the objects and serializable objects, things like that, and then we can optimize. I hope that's okay for you. Sorry if it's too basic. So if we execute that, we get now all the questions, but we did not get the possibility to answer, unfortunately. So what can we do about that? First, we need to get the possible answers out. So for each question, we want to get the first possible answer, and then we want to share all of them. How could we do that? The problem is if I use this solution, we don't have an index. We don't know at which question we are, and we would need to check the question and things like that. So quite difficult, right? We know that the first question list has the length of 2, and the second with the possible answers has also a length of 2 with 2 new lists inside. That being said, what we could do is changing this for loop to our index approach. Like we say there is a number I, we say it as long as the questions dot length, and last but not least we increase our counter of the I. And now to print that we say we want to have I inside of here, questions, so we use our list and then we pass in the I and see now it should present to us also the questions. Yes. The next step would be to show for each questions all possible answers. That means what we have now is if we print the possible answers with the I inside, if I do that, let's make that the other way around, like put that down here. So if I execute that now, we can see, let's add a new print line just in case, then it's easier to understand what happens here. Clear. Too few positional, yeah, sure, makes sense. Thank you. So clear again. So what we did now is we enter the question, we get the list of different answer possibilities, but it's not really nice, alright? I would like to have 1.Paris, 2.Berlin, 3.London, and things like that. And the same thing for the second question. So how can we do that? We would like to question, we get this, but now we need to loop through all the possible answers again. So how can we do that? We could try again with this final possible answer in possible answers. And if we do that, now we can print all the possible answer. And we would like to do that with a string. So 1 dot possible answer. And now, this 1 is the problem, right? Now we only show 1 here. That's also unfortunate. So if I execute that now, that's close to what we want. No, it's not even. We have to give here, of course, the index inside. So we want to pass in only the possible answers from the first list or from the second list. Are we clean again? Not too bad. So we are able to see first Paris, second Berlin, but unfortunately the number up here is not updating. So what we need to do is unfortunately switching also this to our bigger case of implementing. So we say var j, make sure that this is now a different name than here, because this is for the outer loop. Now we are working for the inner loop. And if j is smaller than the possible answers dot length, we increase our j. So, and that will mean that inside of here we have again the list. Here we want to access now. That's getting a little bit tricky, but what we want to do is we want to go to the first list from the upper part, right? So we go to this list, and then we want to get from this list the specific index on here, like Paris, Berlin, London, and so on and so forth. So we do that by adding a second parentheses afterwards with the j inside. So we get through the first one first, and then we increase the j1 until there is nothing left anymore. So, and inside of here, the first parameter is j actually. So it should look like something like this. So let's see if I'm correct. Run the whole thing. Oh, not too bad. The only downside again, we have j is now starting with 0, so we have to increase that by 1. Do that again, and it looks quite good. So let's do it again. We have Paris, Berlin, but here are somehow... Look at that. Because I use the possible answers and not the inner list of possible answers, it shows us only the first two options. So we have also to increase that to Y. And if I do it now, we get all the lists, because now I access the first list. We go inside of here, we access the first list and say we want to go over each of these elements. And that's why we see it now with this possible answers length inside of here. Because else we would access the length of the first list here, which only contains two, right? The first list and the second list. I hope that was clear. All right, if we are here, we have now entered the numbers, and now we would like to ask before we go to the second question. That means inside of here, after we have shown the possible answers, we would like to, so what have we done now actually? We have done this. Do I get somehow, let's go here quickly and switch to the Emojipedia. What a wonderful website, by the way. And let's search for checkmark. Yes, this one. Thank you. Let's switch back to VS Code. We have done this. Show the user answers option. We have done that. Check if the answer is correct. We have not done that yet. Inform the, oh, and of course there is something missing. We have also to ask the user the question, right? So that means we have to do that here. So let's add that quickly. 2.1, just because I don't want to change all of them. Ask the user for the correct answer. So let's do that. So after we have shown all the information, but inside of the question, because we don't want to go further until the user has answered, we ask him for his answer. So final users or answer equals to stdin read line sync. And first of all, we have to ask him. So we make std out for outprinting, write, and now we enter here, please provide your answer. And I would like to have J and J1, like the length of it. Like I would like to have this answer from 1 to possible, like this, possible answers. Oh, wait, let's do it manually. So let's write nothing. I will just show you first what I want to achieve before I write that now in. I think that makes sense. So if we ask now, there's nothing happening, but if I go here in, we will stay here. So first question, and now we stick, right? And what I would like to do is giving the user a hint that he can press 1, 2, 3, 4, and he do not has to enter Paris, for example. So that's why I will add this hint here, but I don't know the length of the questions, of the answers. So it could be that this here is 4, it could be that it's 3. Let's remove that here for that, so that we make that a bit more obvious. So call that Dart. So this one has a length of 3, this one 4. That could mean if I share this example here, we could have one time 1 to 4, 1 to 2, 1 to 6, and so on and so forth. So I have to update dynamically. So inside of here, what we would need to do is giving him somehow the possibility to know how long the answers are. And we have that knowledge thanks to this line here. We go in the first element of the lists of the first question and check how long it is. And if I pass that in, and I have not made too much mistakes, let's clean that. We can see now the number 4, because the length of these is 4. So if I enter here 1 and get the next question, now it is 3. I hope that made clear what I wanted to achieve. And with that, we have the next step done. So we ask the user for an answer, and that means we can go up to our to-do list. We did that. Now we have to check if the answer is correct. So how do we do that? We get the answer, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And now we have to check if it's correct. We have the correct answers, and we know at which question we are. So that means, thanks to this for loop, we are still with this I, we still know at which question we are. That means inside of here, I can do now the following. Correct answers, and taking the question where we are at the moment. So this means this has exactly 2 answers, yeah? So we know exactly where we are here. And now we have to check. So that means if this equals to the answer, then we do something like print correct, else print incorrect. So is that correct now? We get 1, 2, 3, 4, but here we get Paris and so on and so forth. Ah, that's unlucky. We will have to think about that because that will not solve our problem direct. So let's see. I enter here now the capital of France. I think it's Paris. It's incorrect. And the programming language of Flutter, it's incorrect. Wait, why is this the case? I already said it actually, but what we can do is let's print the correct answer for I. And what I also want to print is the answer itself, so what the user has entered. So if I do that and say it's 1, we can see it's Paris and 1. And they are obviously not correct. So what we have to do to make this really to make that really correct is we have to pass that answer into the possible answers and pass it here inside as a number. And as you can see, now it's getting reddish underlined. The reason is we receive from answers a string. So it could be, first of all, that it is null. That's the question. So someone entered nothing. What happens then? So if someone enters nothing, we have to tackle that. And another thing that we have to tackle is it's a string, but it requires an integer to pass here inside. Okay, let's solve one problem by another. So int answer index equals int dot, and we use a function now of integer called parse. And if we do that, we pass inside the answer and it still stays red. And the reason is it could be still a null value. But we are the maintainer of the code and I say with an exclamation mark, here will be an answer inside. I will make sure that here always will be an answer. That is quite dirty. And I know that, and I will fix that in a second. I just want to show you how it works. So answer index comes here, and now everything is green. That was already quite a lot. So let's quickly go again over it. What happens? We ask the user for the question. We get an answer from the user in terms of a number 1 to 4 or 1 to 3. Then we take this number and translate this string that we receive into a fixed number that has no floating point. Afterwards, we are checking the correct answer that we received to the question with the possible answers that we receive from the question from the user. So we check if the possible answer that he gave is exactly the same like the correct answer. If it is correct, then we pass out correct. If not, we say incorrect. So let's see how this turns out in our code when we execute the Dart code. What is the capital of France? Let's say 1. He still says incorrect. Okay, I made somewhere probably a thinking mistake. So let's print quickly out these 2 options again, because that shouldn't be the case. So go inside, print answer index, and print this here, so that we know what is the answer. So we gave Paris, and we receive now JavaScript, Kotlin, and Dart. Obviously. Sure, makes sense. The reason is the same as I said. The answer that we receive is starting with 1, right? We say he is allowed to enter 1. But the problem is the array does not know that. He starts always with 0. So we have to reduce it by 1, this accessory here. So if we reduce that, I'm pretty sure we should get now the correct value. Well, let's see if this is correct. It's still incorrect. We get the, sure. And the second bug that we created is we have to check for the current answer. So the possible answers for the current question, which is I. So That being said, we check now for the possible answers of the current question, and afterwards we are checking for the answer that is inside of here. So now it hopefully works. 1, correct. So we get from the first elements the right thing, so we can remove that, and that's it. So it checks now correctly, gets the values. Let's quickly add this once more, just because I saw right now that it didn't print out the correct value. And let's try it again. 1. And now we can see the first is entered as 1, Paris is the correct thing, and it's correct, and with that we have solved our problem. And also the same thing goes for Dart. Good. So back to our to-dos. What do we have done? We checked if the answer is correct. We informed the user if the answer is correct in the worst possible case, but let's say it's okay-ish. Let's make a print afterwards just to have a little bit more breathing room and make it more beautiful. So let's say Paris, correct, and Dart, correct. And let's remove these to-do prints. Usually, if we would have a live project and we would be a bit more advanced, I would also require to write tests for all of that. We will do that the next time, I think, because it makes sense to have test-driven development in this case, to write a test, show the results, try the tests, see the results, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So maybe for the next time, for the future Macs, whoever creates such a basic course, it would make sense to show also how to write tests. Anyway, if I have that now, I enter something incorrect, it works, correct, works, great stuff. Let's make that more beautiful. The answer is correct and the answer is incorrect. Good. What is the next task? Update the score of the user. So if the answer is correct, then we want to increase the score by 1 point. If the answer is not correct, we don't want to do that. So that means whenever I print now, we can do that a bit easier. Remove that and remove that. And down here, we want to print the score. The answer is correct. Your current score is score. So, and if we execute that, I can now exit Berlin. We can see the score is 0. If I answer something correct, then it is 0 still, because this is the wrong order. We have to first increase it and afterwards we show the message. Clear, do it again, Berlin and Dart, and we get our score of 1. Good. With that, we have solved already most of our quiz, right? We have our questioning. We know now we update our score. Show the next question. I think we do that also already. So we implemented our loop from the start. And if there is no question anymore left, then we show the final score and exit the game. So that means when there is no question anymore, we are done with all the questions. We print out, thanks for playing Dart quiz with us today. Print, your final score is entering the score, and maybe the possible score that would be there from questions.length. So that means I enter something, we got 1 out of 2 points. And the cool thing is now, all of that is done. We exit the game, we show the final score, and we exited the game. Great. All right. And with that, we have our very first quiz created. And the cool thing is, it's quite extensible, right? If I add here now a new question that I could check for everything, like who is moderating the live stream on Flutter Explained? Did someone try with which solution ChatGPT came up? I think ChatGPT would be probably nearly the same, I guess. It shouldn't just switch there or anything. Deepanache, but just do that. It's a whole explanation of Dart. I hope it will help you. Did someone try? Yeah, so I think ChatGPT will probably come up with the same thing. It's a very basic solution here, and it should solve the problem nearly the same way, I guess. So adding this, and if I add here another one, who is moderating? So we could add Max, Mahtab, Minu, Deepak, all of the people. So, and if we'll run that again, thanks to the extensibility, we should have now all possibilities. Zack. The only thing is we crash because the correct answer is missing. So we have Max here. And if we do that, you have, of course, the possibility to write code to exit the code. Let's quickly do that. You have two options here. Because we are in the main function, you could just write return. That will stop the process, will return out of it, but it is not necessarily necessary because there is no code actually. And I think there's also the exit command. And you can say, for example, 400, and with exit, you do nearly the same thing. Doesn't make sense to do it here, so let's put it somewhere up here. Let's say, let's say before we see the questions even, we just throw the exit code. And if this happens, done. We don't see anything in the Dart. We could check out the Dart VM logs, there we would get the exit code. But with exit, you really finish everything off. But as I said, because there is no code to execute anymore afterwards, there is no necessarily for an exit actually. Obviously we could do it, don't know, doesn't change anything, I guess. So, and because we have Emojipedia, what we can do is, for example, have a tada, the party popper, and add that here somewhere. And if we execute it now, we should see our party popper showing us the results. Great stuff. So that's it for the easy, let's say, push of the first solution here with main.dart. We can create all the different things. We go through the control view. Let's quickly check again our timeline, what we have planned for today, if I have solved everything. No, we did not. The only thing that we have not managed is the functions. I think we did not have the time for it, so I will take that for the next one. Let's have a quick recap what we saw. We had an introduction today about Dart in general, why it is important, why is this necessary, what are the downsides, what are the upsides, what is Dart in general, and why I really like it. Then we have talked about basic information like Dart syntax, how you comment in Dart, variables, constants, and final variables. We have talked very briefly about your first Dart project. We created a Hello World project, executed that, were able to share that with you. Then we had the control view flow, like conditional statements. We have switch statements, loops, and break and continue. And at the end, and I did not write that down here, we created a whole quiz app where we have the possibility to execute in our terminal. Great session. When will be the next session for functions? The next session, I don't know yet, probably in 2 or 4 weeks. I have nothing planned there yet. If it will be earlier, I will tell you that. You will see that on our channel, so subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything anymore. Sorry for that. Can't be too additional here. Is it necessary to have a Mac for Flutter? It's not necessarily. I personally like Mac just for the development cycle. It's super easy, super easy to use. Is it now mandatory to use it? Absolutely not, no. You need it if you want to create an app for iOS, because else you are not able to build there. But if you create an app for Windows or for Android, you can directly use that. So you don't have any necessity to have a Mac. Only if you want to work for macOS or iOS, then you will need a Mac. And here you have multiple options. Number one is of course buying one, but that's quite expensive usually. You could ask for a friend if he can lend it to you. That's an option. And if you just want to build something, like you have your Flutter code, it works on Android, and you just want to have it on iOS, there are also options to go to a university or so and asking if they have a Mac for free where you can just build and run the whole thing at the end. This is how I started, because I was an anti-Apple person a long time, and started then later from my Windows computer to switch to a Mac slowly, just because I like the convenience. I like the, underneath it's Linux, and it's quite heavy to use it as a developer. It's quite strong. And at the moment I'm using this M2 chip, and it's so much power. It's crazy, really, it's crazy. Can we build model classes connecting them to UI? Yes, I want to have that. Yeah, it's a golden cage. That's absolutely true. If you are once starting with it, it's hard to switch again. And I would like to switch to Linux actually, but yeah, never had the chance so far. But yeah, that's my learnings from that. Are there any other questions that I am happy to answer? As you can see on the screen at the moment, you have the relevant links. You find them down in the video description, just for everyone who's interested. And I think I can also switch here now, because we are finished coding. We have solved that. I'm pretty happy with it. We had a very good session, in my opinion. I was really happy to have it a little bit prepared. I hope you liked that too. I hope really you learned something. Can it run Far Cry? I play Far Cry at the moment on Xbox Live, like this streaming option from Xbox. So I can play it on my browser. I like it. It's good enough for me on quality of graphics. And in Steam you have quite some games that you can play actually. And I was quite surprised how good they work actually. But you can also see some downsides, because developers are lazy when it comes to Mac. So if you want to play games, Windows is still the address that you should go to. Or the new Steam Deck. I hear the new Steam Deck is amazing. So, did I have everything? Recap of the covered concepts? Yes. Next steps? Yes. How do you can further learn? If you want to increase our quiz application, you can think about bringing color into the console. This is possible by pub.dev, creating some packages, and you could increase like colors and having like beautiful green and blue colors and red colors if someone is incorrect and things like that. You could try to enhance it with more questions. You could enhance it with multiple correct answers. So if an answer, if a question is has multiple correct answers, how you can do that? You could even increase it by make it possible to enter correct answers and things like that. With a payment gateway, that would be interesting. Yeah, I would love that. I think that would be sounding like a very good opportunity to increase the viewership, because everything regarding payments and money is always very important. Yeah, and if you want to learn more about Dart, check out the language tour, of course, of Dart. If you have a lot of interest, I have also created a day, the Dart koans. I have unfortunately never finished that so far. Dart koans. This is a way on how you can learn can I think that Dart koans GitHub? Yeah, here. I can share that with you. So these Dart koans is a way on how to learn Dart. I unfortunately did not finish or go further with it so far until chapter 2. But it gives you the possibility to learn via tests. So tests are written, and inside of these tests you have to fix these tests to finally see the outcome. I really like that way. This is the way how I learned C#, for example. I would like to increase that in the future, maybe with also Flutter examples, so that you create a Flutter widget and it will test if this Flutter widget is correct. But until now I didn't have the time to go much more in detail here. Good. Yeah, that's about Dart resources. I managed to share that multiple times, and if there is no further question now, I would say it was a fantastic stream. I'm really thankful for all of your support, for your joinings, for your questions, for everything you did. Hit the like button if you like that session, subscribe to our channel if you want to know more about Dart and Flutter. There is a getting start in Flutter for this Thursday set up as a video. I hope to see you there on prime time, like if it's priming, and else I would be very happy to see you on Discord. Oh, that was a weirdly good accident from Streamlabs right now, but yeah, if you want to join Discord, feel free to do that. If you have any questions to me or to the projects I'm doing at the moment, put them out there. And else, enjoy the rest of your day and see you the next time. Bye.